Have you ever felt that someone just lives inside your mind? As if they're there, without even asking permission? Maybe it's someone you once loved deeply. Or someone who hurt you. Even though years have passed. You no longer meet, no longer talk, they still appear in your dreams. In your thoughts. In the quiet moments when you should feel at peace. Why do they stay in your head? Tonight, we'll explore teachings from Zen Buddhism, not to judge. Not to force yourself to forget, but to understand why that person still lingers and how. Through mindfulness and abiding in the present, you can gently let them go. Take a deep breath and exhale slowly. Perhaps every answer begins right here. You find yourself at work, cooking, sitting alone in silence, and suddenly, their image flashes into your mind? No need to name them. No reason needed, they quietly appear. That face, that voice, that feeling. Sometimes someone you loved, sometimes someone who harmed you, sometimes an unclear, unfinished relationship. No matter how long it's been, no matter how much it feels like the past, they still live in your mind, as if they never left. You've tried to forget. You've blocked them on social media, deleted photos, changed your phone number, meditated, journaled, even prayed, but they're still there, in your dreams, in quiet moments, in every gust of wind. The question echoes, why haven't they gone? Is it because you haven't let go? Or because you still love them? Maybe, but Buddhism, especially Zen, offers a deeper perspective. That person is no longer in your life. Yet they remain in your heart, because you haven't finished learning something. Zen doesn't try to erase. It doesn't force forgetting. It gently invites you to return to yourself. To look directly, but without judgment. Not pushing yourself to move on, but understanding deeply. What keeps them staying so long? What do they represent? A wound that hasn't healed? A part of yourself unacknowledged? A truth you've avoided? The Buddha said, nothing is random. People come into our lives to teach us a lesson. So if that person keeps appearing, day after day, perhaps they haven't truly left. Because that lesson remains unfinished. You don't need to fight the memory. You don't need to force yourself to forget at all costs. Instead, simply listen to yourself, gently, deeply. On this journey, you're not alone. We will explore 7 profound reasons, illuminated by Buddhist wisdom, to understand why someone might stay in your mind for so long. And then, we'll walk together toward healing, letting go, and returning to our innate peace. No rush, no hurry. Breathe a little slower, listen a little more, and begin. Some people pass through our lives and leave an unmistakable space. We remember them, think of them, feel our hearts stir when we hear an old song, see a familiar place, or simply sit quietly in the night. In those moments, we often tell ourselves, I'm still in love. We call it love. I can't forget, because my heart still cares. But Buddhism invites us to look deeper. Is that truly love, or just attachment wearing love's coat? True love, according to the Buddha, is what brings peace. Loving someone is wishing them happiness, whether they're with you or not. But attachment is different. Attachment makes you anxious when they don't text back. Attachment makes you check social media for hours, hoping to see something from them. Attachment makes you compare yourself to others, asking, why not me? Where are they now? Do they still think of me? If thoughts of them stir unease in your heart, that is no longer love. It's an invisible bond linking you to absence, longing, incompleteness. And that bond, the tighter you hold, it chokes you. In Zen, there is an old metaphor. Attachment is like holding a hot coal, intending to throw it at someone else, but you are the one who gets burned first. Whenever we cling to a person, whether through love, anger, or the need for validation, we bind ourselves to suffering. Each thought of them reheats that hot coal, burning our own hearts again. Love doesn't make you worry. Love doesn't make you watch. Wait, live in suspense. Love is generosity in the heart. Attachment is a chain locking your heart shut. If they appear in your mind, ask gently, am I loving them, or am I needing them to fill something empty inside me? Ask this not to blame yourself, but to listen, to understand that sometimes we miss someone, simply because we've lost ourselves. And when we can name that attachment, not confuse it with love, that is when we begin the first step toward freedom. Because, as a Zen master once said, when you stop grasping, love becomes truly free. When you let go, your heart becomes truly light. After recognizing that what you called love may just be a form of attachment, you step deeper into your inner journey. And sometimes, even when you've understood this clearly, the person still does not leave your mind. You still think of them every day. There's still something unfinished, a feeling incomplete. In Buddhism, this is called unfinished karma, or karmic entanglement. Karma, in its deepest meaning, is not about punishment. It is not a simple cause and effect system where those who do wrong must pay. Karma, as the Buddha taught, is the continuation of lessons we have not yet finished learning. It is the invisible thread that connects people who are meant to cross paths, so they can meet, collide, and teach each other something essential. Maybe that person came into your life to teach you about pain, but you never truly allowed yourself to feel it. Maybe you were the one who hurt them, and deep inside, you still carry a guilt you have never faced. Or perhaps, they appeared as a mirror, reflecting something about yourself that you are not ready to accept. Whatever the reason, their persistent presence in your mind is not a coincidence. It is a sign, a reminder, that somewhere in this connection, a lesson is still incomplete. It could be forgiveness. It could be looking at yourself through the light of understanding. It could be acknowledging a long-buried emotion, like anger, jealousy, or a sense of injustice. And if you still see them in your mind, even though they are far gone in real life, then it is time to ask, what am I avoiding? What am I holding on to? And what is the real lesson here? Sometimes, the reason someone stays in our heart is not because we love them, but because they carry a lesson our soul needs in order to grow. And until we realize, accept, and learn that lesson, they will remain. Like a teacher who stays in the classroom until the student understands. Zen Buddhism does not rush to erase someone's image. Zen gently invites us to look inward, with an undefended heart, and when the lesson is complete, karma naturally lets go. As an old Zen poem says, when the old karma flows away, the old person becomes wind, and the mind returns to stillness like a quiet lake. There are people who do nothing particularly special, yet they linger in our thoughts in strange, powerful ways. They might be a coworker, an old acquaintance, or someone you are not even close to. But somehow, their presence keeps tugging at your mind. They might trigger envy, irritation, admiration, or insecurity, even though they have not done anything specific to deserve it. Just seeing them, or thinking of them, stirs up a whole swirl of emotions. Buddhism, and modern psychology like Jungian analysis, calls this the reflection of the shadow self. Within each of us are two parts: the light, everything we accept, express, nurture, and the shadow, everything we reject, suppress, or avoid facing. This shadow could be selfishness, weakness, arrogance, or a need to control, but it can also be confidence, personal power, or the ability to express oneself, traits we were once hurt for showing. So we quietly buried them. And when we encounter someone who expresses exactly the part we have denied in ourselves, we are instantly drawn to them, not because they are extraordinary, but because they mirror a forgotten part of us. If we dislike them, it might be because they reveal something we do not want to admit. If we admire them to the point of obsession, it might be because they embody something we long for but do not allow ourselves to live. For example, you see someone who is confident, speaks freely, and expresses themselves with ease. Meanwhile, you feel shy and afraid of judgment. Every time you see them, you feel both admiration and discomfort. And then, you keep thinking about them endlessly. In that case, they are just a mirror, reflecting the confidence you have suppressed. That person is not the issue. Your feelings are what needs to be understood. Zen invites us to ask sincerely, what is it about this person that unsettles me so deeply? And what does that say about myself? This is not an easy journey. Looking into our own shadow requires courage. We have to admit that sometimes, we are the ones who are hurt, insecure, or envious. But in that moment, we finally have the chance to embrace ourselves with compassion. The Buddha never told us to reject our dark sides. He simply taught us to look at them with the light of mindfulness. And when that light is warm enough, the darkness begins to dissolve on its own. There is a Zen story. A disciple once asked a master, "That person makes me uncomfortable. Even though they have done nothing wrong, what should I do to avoid them?" The master smiled gently and replied, "You do not need to avoid that person. You only need to sit and listen to your own echo reflected through them." Indeed, those who disturb our peace are not always the troublemakers. They are sometimes hidden mirrors, reflecting back the parts of ourselves we have never dared to embrace. When we are quiet enough to see that, the person stops being an obsession. They become a profound lesson, and once that lesson is understood, the mirror no longer needs to stay. As a Zen master once said, "People do not make us suffer. It is the unseen shadow within us that is the true root of every unrest." By now, you may have realized that the person stays in your mind not just because of emotion, but because of deeper reasons: attachment, unfinished karma, or parts of yourself that remain unseen. But there is still another reason, more subtle, harder to recognize, and that is the attachment to outcome. We think about them not because they are still here, but because we are still waiting for something to happen. An apology that never came, a recognition we never received, a reunion we have imagined 100 times in our heads, a beautiful ending, a complete story, or sometimes just something we cannot even name, but still silently hope for. Zen teaches that suffering does not come from what happens, but from our desire for things to happen a certain way. When our mind clings to a specific outcome, whether it is reconciliation, understanding, or simply hoping they still think of us, we trap ourselves in a cycle. A part of us cannot let go, because we are still hoping. Zen teaches that suffering does not come from what happens, but from our desire for things to happen a certain way. When our mind clings to a specific outcome, whether it is reconciliation, understanding, or simply hoping they still think of us, we trap ourselves in a cycle. A part of us cannot let go, because we are still hoping they will come back, that they will understand us, that one day, things will turn out right, the way we imagined. And that very hope, though it carries the beauty of sincerity, is the rope that tightens around our heart each day. We are not obsessed with the person. We are obsessed with the outcome we never got. In Zen, there is a concept known as beginner's mind, a mind free from expectations, demands, or the need to control how the world unfolds. It is a mind that sees everything as if for the first time. A mind that can live in the present, without needing the future to match our desires. But if you look closely, you will notice, when you think of that person, you are rarely stuck in a memory. You go beyond it. You write a script. You imagine what they might do, or what you wish they had said. And every time you do that, your heart becomes even more entangled in something that has not happened, and may never happen. When we tie our happiness to a specific outcome, we lose our ability to rest in the present. And that is what turns the other person into a character who can never leave the stage of our mind, because their role is not finished in the script we wrote for them. But Zen does not teach us to rewrite the script. Zen invites us to close the script and sit quietly before the empty stage, with no one stepping out. Just watching and breathing, no expectations, no demands. Because in that letting go, there is a freedom no outcome can ever give. There is a Zen story. A student once said to a master, "I have tried everything to make them come back, but they still left me." The master asked, "And if they did come back, would you be happy forever?" The student was silent. The master smiled gently and said, "Happiness does not come from someone returning. It comes from no longer needing them to feel complete. Indeed, when you no longer force reality to match your wishes, you are finally free. That person may still appear in your thoughts, but they no longer control your heart. Because you have stopped expecting, stopped waiting, stopped assigning their presence a specific purpose. And strangely, the moment we stop waiting for something to happen, we begin to see the miracles already unfolding in this very moment." As Zen master Suzuki Roshi once said, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. There is something remarkable about the mind. It never stops talking to itself." Our mind produces thousands of thoughts each day about things we must do, things that happened, things that have not happened, and about people who once walked through our lives. Among them, sometimes there is one person who repeats like a never-ending loop. But maybe what causes our suffering is not that they are still there, but that we believed thinking about them was the truth. The Buddha taught, "You are not your thoughts." This is one of the most profound truths, and yet one of the hardest to grasp. When we think of someone, we do not just see their image. We attach to them emotions, stories, interpretations. For example, "He abandoned me. She never understood me. They should have." These statements do not come from reality. They come from the thoughts we create and believe in. And when we believe those thoughts, we become those thoughts. We identify with the role of the victim, the one left behind, the one never truly loved. We stop observing the mind, we become the mind. We are no longer the one watching the river. We have been swept away by the current without even realizing it. Zen invites us to step back, just one step, to see thoughts as clouds drifting across the sky. Not the sky itself, when you think of them. Instead of saying, "I miss them," try saying, "This is a thought of missing." It may seem small, but this shift separates you from the story and gives you back your freedom. The mind will keep thinking, that is its nature. But you do not have to become everything it says. You do not have to react to every memory that appears. You only need to breathe, observe, and let it pass like smoke in the air. A Zen master once said, "When you no longer think you are the cloud, you will see the sky. When you no longer think you are the pain, you will find stillness. When you no longer think you are the memory, you will know freedom." You do not need to erase thoughts of that person. You only need to change how you relate to them. Instead of labeling them as me, see them as a mental event. Thoughts come and go. Emotions rise and settle. Only you remain awake, steady, like a quiet lake after the wind. In meditation, there is a technique called labeling. When thoughts arise, you simply note thought, memory, emotion, no judgment, no analysis, no pushing away, no holding on, just acknowledging it is here and that it will leave. Just like that person in your life, they came and then they left. But you, the one sitting here, breathing, observing, are what remains unchanged. Next time that person shows up in your mind, try not to say, "I miss them." Instead, gently whisper to yourself, "Ah, a memory is passing through." And then, return to your breath, to your heartbeat, to the present moment. Strangely enough, just that simple act, over time, will keep you from being swept away by your thoughts. That person, who once occupied your mind like a tenant, will slowly become just a passing cloud, no longer holding power over your emotions. As taught in the Satipatthana Sutta, observe the mind in the mind, to see clearly that the mind is impermanent. Observe phenomena in phenomena, to realize all things merely come and go. One of the deepest roots behind why that person remains in your mind is a quiet belief that they will stay there forever. Not in real life, but within your heart, a sense that this relationship, this feeling, this hurt, will stretch on endlessly. Like a tattoo that can never be erased. You may not say it out loud, but deep down, a part of you believes, this feeling will never go away. That is the illusion of permanence, one of the greatest delusions of the human mind, and also one of the deepest sources of suffering. As the Buddha taught, the Buddha said, all things are impermanent, from the body, emotions, to thoughts, from joy to sorrow, from a glance, a word, to even the kind of love you thought would be etched into your soul. Nothing lasts forever, but our minds, so used to clinging, often refuse to believe that. If you keep thinking of them and cannot stop, it may be because, in some hidden corner of your heart, you still believe that your connection was unchanging, that something once so deep could not possibly fade, that if it once felt so real, then surely it must still exist. But the truth is, even what is real is not exempt from impermanence. A flower, no matter how beautiful, will wilt. A bond, no matter how profound, if it has fulfilled its purpose, will dissolve, not because it was fake, but because its role in your journey has come to an end. Zen invites you to look deeply. What exactly are you holding on to? Is it love, or a beautiful memory you do not want to lose? Is it them, or the old emotion you never dared to say goodbye to? We do not suffer because of a person. We suffer because we do not want to admit that something has ended. And it is that refusal to accept the ending that keeps us looping the past in our minds. We live inside a time capsule, where memories are preserved like antiques, polished with longing, and displayed with what ifs and if onlys. There's a line in the Diamond Sutra that says, "All forms are illusions. If you see all forms as non-forms, then you will see the Tathagata." In other words, everything with form is fleeting. If you can see that form as not permanent, then you will see the truth. That person, the relationship, the image, all of it is just a fleeting appearance in the river of life. If you try to freeze them in your memory, you are trying to hold on to what cannot be held. You are resisting the nature of reality. When we truly understand impermanence, the pain softens, not because it vanishes, but because we stop believing it will last forever. We allow everything to come and go, just as it should. Like waves reaching the shore. You cannot hold the wave, but you do not need to push it away either. The wave will return to the ocean on its own. In meditation, there is a practice called contemplation on impermanence. You sit quietly and observe everything as passing. The breath comes in and goes out. Sounds appear and fade. A thought arises and dissolves like smoke. And through this practice, you begin to feel nothing is fixed. Nothing stays. Not even the person you once thought you could never forget. You do not need to erase their image. Each time you remember them, just smile gently and whisper, "I see you here, and I also know you will pass." Then take a deep breath. Return to the present. Gradually, what once was a storm becomes a breeze. What once was a wound becomes a faint mark. And the one who once was the center of your universe becomes a star that has quietly faded into the sky of memory. You do not need to erase them from your mind. You only need to see clearly that nothing, not even a memory, is forever. Beyond all attachments, karma, reflections, and illusions, there is still one final reason. A reason that does not lie in the realm of emotion, but in something deeper, the realm of the soul. A reason that cannot be measured by logic or memories, but only felt in silence and mindfulness. There are people who appear in your life not to be loved, and not to stay. They come as part of a spiritual task not yet complete. A profound lesson that your soul agreed to learn, long before the encounter ever happened. Buddhism, especially in Zen and Vajrayana traditions, holds a very unique view of karmic connections. People do not meet by chance. They cross paths to walk a stretch of the road together. Sometimes short, sometimes long, but always with something meant to be awakened. Perhaps they came to teach you about boundaries, about letting go, about unconditional love, about pain and forgiveness. And if you still cannot stop thinking about them, it might be because that lesson is still unfolding. It is not that you have not forgotten. It is that you have not yet understood. It is not that you are too weak. It is that your soul still needs to complete a transformation. That person, who may have been the one who hurt you in reality, could actually be, in the deeper dimension of karma, the one who woke you up, not with sweetness, but with challenge, not with an embrace, but with distance. They are the doorway through which you begin your journey inward. There's a Zen parable that goes, someone asked a Zen master, "Why does that person always hurt me?" The master replied, "No one can hurt you unless there is already a wound inside you. They did not cause your pain. They only touched the place that has not yet healed." The person fell silent for a long time, then asked, "So are they the one who caused my suffering? Or the one who helped me awaken?" The master smiled and said, "It depends on whether you see with ordinary eyes, or the eyes of wisdom." And it is true. When you shift your perspective, everything changes. That person is no longer someone who refuses to leave your mind, but a spiritual assignment that was given to you long before. Not so you could become dependent, but so you could grow. Not so you would stay stuck in suffering, but so you would learn how to touch the freedom within yourself. Zen does not demand that you forgive. It does not insist that you immediately be compassionate. It simply invites you to place a hand over your heart and ask honestly, "What did this person come to teach me? If this is a lesson, have I learned it? If this is a mission, what part is still incomplete?" You do not need to answer right away. Sometimes, you will need to sit in silence for a long time. Sometimes, you will need to cry deeply. But at the end of that silence, there will be light. Not light from them, but from within you. When you can see that this person, whether they stay or go, is a gift of awakening, you will stop trying to forget, and you will no longer need to remember. You will simply be grateful. Grateful that you met, grateful that you learned what you needed, and grateful that you are now ready to let go, not out of resentment, but because your love is now whole. That person may still appear in your thoughts, but their presence no longer feels like a chain. It is a sign that you are on the path of awakening. And from there, freedom begins to bloom. Here is something few people realize. Often, we are not haunted by that person, but by the part of ourselves that no one has ever truly seen. And that person, whether they intended to or not, touched exactly that hidden place. We think we miss a person, but in truth, we miss the feeling of being understood, of being seen, of being acknowledged, that they once brought us, even if only for a moment. In everyday life, how often do you truly feel heard by others? How often do you get to be your full self, without pretending? Without hiding? How often do you share your heart, and feel received with non-judging care? Rare, very rare. So when someone shows up, even briefly, and makes you feel seen, understood, touched to your core, your heart immediately clings to them. It does not want to lose that, because deep inside us, there is always a part that longs to be recognized, not for achievements, but simply for being. That person may not have done anything extraordinary. Maybe they just listened to you speak. Maybe they looked at you with gentle eyes. Maybe they understood something you had kept hidden. But in that moment, your heart etched them in. And even when they are no longer around, that part of you that was touched still whispers, "I want to feel that way one more time." In Buddhist teachings, this ties into the concept of self-clinging, attamanyana, the tendency of the ego to seek affirmation through others. When we are not truly rooted in ourselves, we look for someone to reflect back our worth. And when someone makes us feel worthy, we unconsciously grant them the power to define who we are. It is not that we love them. We love who we got to be when we were with them. And that is what makes us feel haunted. Because we do not want to lose that feeling. Because when they leave, We believe we have lost the better version of ourselves we once were in their presence. But what is the truth? The truth is, that beautiful part of you is still inside you. They did not create it. They only activated it. That tenderness, sincerity, and depth, that is yours. That is you. When you realize this, your perspective will shift. You will no longer need to hold them in your thoughts to be yourself. You only need to return and learn how to listen to yourself the way you were once listened to. You do not need someone else to validate your worth. You only need to sit with yourself as a kind and gentle friend. Try this. Sit down, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, what was it about that person that made me feel touched? Then ask again, can I give that to myself? You may come to realize this. You just needed to be heard, so start writing a journal. You just needed to feel understood, so sit with your emotions without pushing them away. You just needed to feel like you mattered, so slow down. And do one kind thing for yourself every day. In Zen, there is a concept known as inner sufficiency. It does not mean you do not need anyone. It means you realize that everything you have been seeking from others already exists within you. That person, though once a light in your life, was only a temporary mirror. The true light is still shining brightly within you, waiting for you to return and recognize it. And one day, you will smile, gently, and say, I understand now why I could not let go. But now I see, I no longer need to hold on. You are not forgetting that person. You are simply returning the power to understand and to love back to yourself. And that is the quietest kind of freedom. There is one silent but powerful reason why someone may linger in your mind. The mind always craves a perfect ending. We, as emotional beings, do not just live in the present. We live with memories, with expectations, with pieces that feel unfinished in our hearts. And when a relationship, a connection, or a love ends in a way we did not expect, the mind does not easily let it go. It stays there, replaying, rewriting, asking again and again, it should not have ended like that. If only I had said something different. If only they had understood me a little more. And so, even though time has moved on, our mind stays frozen at that moment of parting. Like a child sitting beside a sandcastle washed away by waves, not because they loved the sand, but because they never got to finish building it. In Buddhism, this is called attachment to the image of the outcome. Vipallasa, a kind of distortion where we do not just cling to the person, but also to how we believe things should have turned out. We want that relationship to have had a gentle ending. We want mutual understanding before parting. We want at least a final apology, a parting hug, a word of thanks. But real life does not always offer that. Sometimes they leave without a word. Sometimes the last conversation is full of anger. And sometimes, you just watch them walk away, while your heart is still wide open. Unfinished. The mind cannot stand that. So, it loops. It dreams. It rewrites alternate endings, over and over again. And that is what keeps them in your mind far longer than necessary. Have you ever caught yourself doing this? Imagining a reunion, a final conversation, a better ending. But really, it is just the mind's craving for closure to a door left half open. Here's what you need to understand deeply. We cannot change the past. We can only accept an incomplete ending with a complete heart. Because, not everything in life will have a perfect ending. But everything can lead to growth, if we look back with wisdom. Ask yourself, what am I truly grieving? Who am I still waiting for, to finish something in my heart? Then look deeper, and see that the only person who can offer you a peaceful ending, is you. You may not need an apology from them. You may not need a movie-worthy farewell. You just need to sit down and say to yourself, everything happened exactly as it needed to. And I will stop rewriting the ending in my mind. From that place, you can write a new ending, not for the old story, but for yourself. An ending where you sit alone in the rain. No longer crying. No longer bitter. Just the soft rhythm of your breath, and a quiet whisper. Thank you for coming. And thank you for giving me the courage to walk forward. With no more explanations needed. Real life may not give you a perfect ending. But your heart, when seen, when accepted, can create a peaceful one. And sometimes, as the Zen masters often say, there is no such thing as a perfect ending, but every step toward awakening is already a form of completion. Sometimes, the reason someone remains in your mind is not because you still love them, nor because their hurt ran too deep, but simply because you have not yet forgiven yourself. It is not the other person binding you. It is the part of you that still cannot release the feeling that you were wrong, that you were weak, that you lost something precious. Maybe you blame yourself for loving too much. Maybe you torture yourself for not being decisive. Maybe you feel you were too naive, too trusting, too soft, or worse, you believe, if only I had been different, they would not have left me. And so, even though they are long gone, the trial in your heart continues. Your mind, like a harsh judge, keeps reopening the old case. Keeps convicting you, again and again. Every time you think of them, what you are really doing is returning to that internal courtroom, where you are the witness, the defendant, and the judge. In Buddhism, this is a manifestation of wrong view of self, miccha ditthi, when we see ourselves as a fixed, flawed identity, and thus lock ourselves into a version of us that we believe cannot be forgiven. The saddest part is, when you cannot forgive yourself, you will keep that person around, as a reason to continue punishing yourself. You do not let yourself move forward, because deep down, you believe you do not deserve peace. And that belief is the real chain. Pause for a moment, and ask yourself with complete honesty. Is the reason I have not let go, because I have not forgiven myself? If the answer is yes, you're touching a very deep layer of healing. Because forgiveness is not something you give to others. Forgiveness is something you must give yourself, in order to keep living without carrying the past like a backpack filled with stones. You do not need to justify your choices. You do not need to prove that you were good enough. You only need to say, gently, there was a time I did not know how to love myself. There was a time I did not understand what I truly needed. But now, I choose to forgive. Forgiveness, not because you were right, but because you deserve a life unchained from guilt. Maybe you were weak. Maybe you were blinded by love. But who has not been? When they truly cared, you do not need to be strong all at once. You only need to be honest with yourself, and sit with yourself like a friend. Picture this. A part of you, a small child within, has been abandoned, scolded, hurt, curled up in the dark. Every time you blame yourself, that child tightens up even more. But if you come closer, Place your hand gently on their shoulder and say, "It's okay. We did our best. We are allowed to make mistakes." That is when the miracle happens. Your heart begins to soften. And that person, who once represented regret, begins to fade into nothingness. Not because you forgot them, but because you no longer need them as a reason to punish yourself. When you forgive yourself, you open the door to true compassion. You no longer need others to validate your worth. You no longer need to keep that person in your mind like an unfinished sentence. You only need to hold yourself, the way you once longed for someone else to hold you. And then, you will come to see something deeply profound. No one can free me, except myself. Letting go does not begin with forgetting someone. Letting go begins the moment you stop turning away from yourself. There is a quiet truth few people name. Sometimes, that person stays in your mind, not because you loved them so much, but because the emotions tied to them were never allowed to fully flow. We live in a fast world, where tears are seen as weakness, where anger must be suppressed, where longing must be swallowed, where pain must be gotten over quickly so we can return to work, life, responsibility, and so, honest emotions, if not allowed to flow, not allowed to be exhaled completely, get stuck inside us like a river blocked at its source. When that person left, for whatever reason, you may not have cried enough. You may not have raged enough. You may have never truly said, "I love you," or admitted how hurt you were. You tried to be strong, tried to be mature, tried to act like it was nothing. You smiled, you went to work, you lived as if nothing had happened. But deep down, your heart was dammed up like a stream unable to flow. And that person, unintentionally, became the symbol of all the feelings you never got to breathe out. In Zen, there's a concept called body-mind misalignment, when your body moves in one direction, but your heart stays behind. You walk forward, but your soul is still sitting at the place of pain, where the tears were never cried aloud. And just like that, that person, or more precisely, the unfinished wave of emotions connected to them, keeps returning, knocking at the door, not to bring you pain, but to whisper, "There is something inside you that still needs to be heard. Something that still needs to flow, all the way through." You might think you have moved on, but moving on does not mean stuffing it into a drawer and locking it away. True moving on is when you are willing to open it and look directly, without resistance, and without rushing to fix anything. Just allowing yourself to feel. Maybe you need an evening alone, to sit down and let yourself cry. Maybe you need to write a letter, not to send, just to say all the things you once swallowed. Maybe you need to take a deep breath and whisper, "I allow myself to be sad, for no reason at all." And then, like water once blocked now released, those emotions will flow. They will not drown you. In fact, they will carry you to the other side of truth. In Buddhist teachings, everything is impermanent, including emotions. They do not last forever. But if you do not allow them to flow, they will get stuck, become stagnant, and you will remain in a state of incomplete. That person might now be just a name, a shadow. But the emotions you never fully lived through, those are what hold you. You do not need to expose this to anyone. You only need to be honest with yourself. To allow yourself to be soft. To allow yourself to hurt. And then, bit by bit, to allow yourself to heal. There is a beautiful saying in Zen: emotions, when followed to their end, no longer bring suffering. They become a river, and the river always knows how to find its way back to the ocean. So if you still miss someone, if their presence still haunts you, ask yourself again, what inside me has never been fully lived? And if the answer is yes, then this is your invitation. Let yourself live that feeling. Just once, fully, without rushing to fix it, without needing to overcome it. Just feel it, all the way. Then everything will quiet down. Not because you forgot, but because you finally lived it enough. Some people enter our lives, not to stay, and not to love in the usual way, but simply to deliver a lesson. But if we have not truly learned that lesson, the heart cannot release them. When someone wounds you deeply, or stirs your soul to its core, there is often a deeper message beneath those emotions meant only for you. It was not just a meeting. It was a mirror, reflecting you back to yourself. And if you stay stuck in blaming them, longing for them, resenting them, or wishing for their return, you may miss the most important part. You are invited to grow. It may be a lesson about boundaries, about listening to your intuition, about how to love without losing yourself, about knowing when to hold on and when to let go. Or maybe the lesson is, I need to learn how to be alone without feeling empty. But if your mind only keeps asking, why did they treat me that way? Why wasn't I good enough? How do I get them back? Then you are looking outward, instead of turning inward. You are searching for someone to blame, instead of accepting life's invitation to grow from where you are hurting. In Zen, there's a concept called impermanence as instruction, that everything that happens can be a teaching. A person arrives, a person leaves, a pain, a lost love, any of these can be a teacher in disguise. But the student must be willing to pause, listen, observe. That person may have hurt you, but if you remain with the pain and do not observe what it has to teach, you are repeating the lesson, not because life is cruel, but because your heart has not yet opened. Ask yourself, what did I learn from this person? What makes me repeat this kind of connection? What am I avoiding within myself by constantly thinking of them? The answers may not come immediately, but when you ask from a place of patience, you begin to call your energy back to yourself. From that point, the obsession begins to fade, not because you forced it, but because you have digested the lesson. There is a beautiful image in Buddhism. A seed truly dissolves only when it has bloomed into a flower. And that flower has wilted in its own time, leaving nothing behind to hold on to. But if a seed is buried and never allowed to bloom, it rots, it turns toxic, it poisons the soil. That person is the seed. The lesson is the flower. And letting go is when you watch that flower bloom and smile as its petals fall. You do not have to learn quickly, but you do have to learn fully. No need to rush to forget. Just stay awake and observe, honestly looking back at yourself. Sometimes, a single deep realization is enough for that person to quietly leave your mind. No hatred, no regret, just their role has ended. And you, the former student, are ready to begin the next chapter. When the present feels heavy, when your heart is weighed down by things you cannot name, when your days pass like music missing its melody, your mind tends to return to the past as a place of refuge. And if, in that past, there was someone who once made your heart feel warm, who gave you a sense of safety, who brought even a fleeting moment of peace, they become a symbol of a home in your memory. You may not still love them. You may no longer wish for them to return. But they, and the memories that follow, are like an old patch of sunlight, where you quietly sit in your mind to hide from the rain falling in the present. And so, like a habit, your mind begins clinging to them as a point of stability, even though you know well that everything is over, that they are no longer who they once were, that the love you shared no longer fits your life. Your heart still turns back. Not because you are weak, but because right now, you do not have anything solid enough to hold on to. In Zen, there is a term, pariyasana, the endless search for something to lean on inside. And when we cannot find stability within, we reach for what's outside, even if it's only a memory long gone. Look deeply at your current life. Maybe you are under too much pressure. Maybe you are lonely. Maybe you are in a dull relationship, a job that does not feed your soul, a space that lacks connection. And when the heart feels lost, it goes back to where it once felt most like itself. The issue is not with that person. The issue is, your heart lacks roots in the present. You miss them, not because they are too special, but because right now, nothing else feels meaningful enough to replace them. You cannot let go, because you do not yet have another place to belong. But here's the truth. The past, no matter how beautiful, cannot be a home. You cannot live in nostalgia forever without slowly withering. What you need is not to go back. What you need is to build a present you no longer want to escape from. A life that is real enough, bright enough, connected enough, so your heart no longer clings to old shadows just to rest. So ask yourself, what am I avoiding in the present? What am I still searching for in the past that I have not found today? How can I create a new space, where even I would want to stay? You do not need to banish the memories. You just need to remember. They are a window, not a home. You can look through that window, smile, say thank you, then slowly step outside, and build yourself a true home. A place where you belong. In the Dhammapada, it says, there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path, and that path does not lie in the past. It begins right now, right beneath your mindful step. Sometimes, the reason you cannot stop thinking about someone comes from something deeply human. Your heart once wrote a story, but life never let you reach the final scene. And because of that, you remain stuck with all the should have beens, like a director who cannot accept that their film was cut off at its most important moment. Maybe you once dreamed of a life with that person. Maybe you imagined what you two would share, a small home, distant travels, warm dinners, even the way they would look at you when your hair turned gray. Maybe you wrote it all in your mind, with vivid detail, deep emotion, a storyline so alive. And when that never came to be, you did not just lose the person, you lost the version of life you had invested your deepest feelings into. What hurts most, sometimes, is not losing someone. It is losing the version of yourself that came alive when you were with them. A self created in dreams, in hope, in silent expectations. And so, when it all falls apart, your heart remains, like an actor who refuses to leave the stage after the play has ended. In Buddhist teachings, this is the nature of the mental formation called sanya, the tendency of the mind to create images, stories, and symbols, then cling to them as if they are reality. You are not haunted by that person. You are stuck in the story you wrote about them, and about yourself, when you were with them. And that is why, Even if your rational mind knows it is over, they are no longer right for you. The timing has changed. The heart still holds on. It holds on not because of reality, but because of a beautiful story that never got an ending. We all have a tendency to fall in love with what could have been. And it is that could have been that keeps the heart from letting go. Because I could have been happy. They could have changed. We could have had the perfect ending. And so the mind cannot release it, because it is still writing the next scene in your head. But you know what? This world does not operate according to should have. Life is not a movie. And you do not need to force it to end the way you imagined. Instead of trying to finish an old story, you can allow yourself to write a new one from where you are now. That story does not need them. It does not need to repeat the past. It does not need to follow the old script. It only needs to be honest, present, and born from who you are right now. To begin that, look directly at the script in your mind. What did you once dream of with them? What role did you assign them in your life? Are you trying to hold onto a version of yourself that only existed when you were with them? Write it down, not to dramatize, but to see clearly. Are you holding onto a person or a dream? When you are mindful enough to see the difference, the mind will begin to let go. No forcing, no forgetting, just the quiet realization that the story has ended, and the lesson has been learned. There's a beautiful image in Zen. Each thought is a passing cloud. Do not try to write poetry on the cloud. Just sit beneath the tree and watch it float by. You do not need to finish that script anymore. Because the most important thing is not the ending. It is who you are becoming after the unfinished story. Sometimes, that person is no longer a literal figure in your mind. They have become a symbol of a time when you felt alive, authentic, and deeply moved. So really, you are not missing them. You are missing the version of yourself you were when you were with them. Maybe it was the first time your heart raced from a single glance. Maybe it was a chapter where you felt loved, seen, made to feel like someone special in another's eyes. Maybe, beside them, you laughed without guarding, spoke your truth without fear, and dreamed of a future without hesitation. And now, after it has all passed, you move through life with steadier rhythms, safe routines, and quiet days, but missing the feeling of truly being alive. So you miss them, not because you want them back, but because they were once the doorway into your most vibrant self. And now, as life feels more muted, more gray, less fiery, you look back at the past as if standing before a vivid painting, while the present is just shades of dull. In Buddhism, this ties to bhavatana, the craving to become, the desire to feel fully alive, to live deeply, to truly connect. And if life today does not offer that, we return to memory, the place where we once felt it most. But you know what? That aliveness, it was not something they gave you. It was you, when you opened your heart, dropped your guard, and loved fully, who awakened yourself. They were just the spark. You were the fire. And that fire, it is still here, waiting for you to return. Take a look at your life now. Are you living too cautiously? Have you traded safety for emptiness? Are you okay, but not truly living? If that feels true, then you do not need to go back to that person. You need to return to yourself, the version of you that once burned with life. You do not need anyone else to feel alive. You just need to allow yourself to live again, write again, dream again, Laugh again. Look at someone without putting up a wall. Let your heart be reborn, not for anyone else, but because you deserve to live like a flame. There is a beautiful Zen saying, "The heart is like embers under ash. It seems extinguished, but with just a gentle breeze, the fire blazes again." That person was not the fire. They were only the breeze. The fire is still you. And now, you can blow into your own heart a new breeze, one that comes from you. No past needed, no memory required, just your willingness to live again, authentically. Some goodbyes do not come with anger. No arguments, no clear ending, just someone slowly growing distant. Fewer calls, eyes that no longer meet, a silence that stretches until it becomes part of your life story. And you realize that relationship did not break apart, it dissolved into silence. And because there was no clear ending, your heart does not know where to place it. No farewell, no closure, no final chapter. So it lingers, like an unsent letter, like a sentence cut off mid-thought, like a hand once held, now let go, without a word. They left, life changed, you moved forward, but your heart still holds a space, a door that was never truly closed. In Buddhism, this is the mark of an unfulfilled mental formation. When a stream of thought arises but is not completed, it loops back again and again, each time in a new form. You may not cry anymore. You may not want them back. But your heart still flutters when someone mentions their name. When you hear that old song. When you see the same soft light from that day you once shared. And you wonder, why do I still remember? The answer may be simple. Because you never said goodbye, with your whole heart. Saying goodbye is not turning off your phone, deleting messages, or blocking someone online. A true goodbye is when you sit with yourself. Look deeply into what was. Take a long breath, and speak the words you once swallowed. Maybe you wanted to say, "I am sad, I regret, I once had hope," but you never said it. You wrapped it up, put it away, and tried to walk on like someone strong. And that, right there, is why your heart has not fully closed the door. You do not need to speak to them. You do not need them to hear, to understand, or to respond. You just need to speak to yourself, as a witness to the ending. Try writing a letter you will never send. Sit down, and honestly say to yourself, "I allow myself to feel sad, one last time. I allow myself to love, one last time. And from now on, I choose to close this chapter, not because there is nothing left to say, but because there is enough for me to move forward." Goodbye is not the end of love. Goodbye is the end of attachment. Goodbye is not because you hate them. Goodbye is because you love yourself enough to stop holding on to a story that is no longer continuing. There is a beautiful image in Zen. Bow your head before the closed door, as an act of gratitude, then turn and walk away. Not in haste, not in regret, not with the need to forget. Just because it is time to move on. And then, each new step becomes lighter. Not because the memory has faded, but because your heart has finally said goodbye, with honesty. Some pain does not come from what happened. It comes from something else, quieter, more persistent. The refusal to accept that it really did happen. When someone leaves, when love ends, when a relationship breaks, you may think you understand. You say, "Yes, I know, it is over." But deep inside, there is still a part that does not want to accept it. Still clinging to a tiny hope. What if? What if they come back one day? What if this is just a test? What if things could still be fixed, if I just change? Try harder. Hold on longer. Is it possible that you are okay, but not truly alive? If that feels true, then you do not need to return to that person. You need to return to yourself, the version of you that once burned bright. You do not need someone else to feel alive. You just need to give yourself permission to live again, to write again, to dream again, to laugh again, to look at someone with unguarded eyes, to let your heart come back to life, not for anyone else, but because you deserve to live like a flame. There is a beautiful Zen saying, "The mind is like glowing embers covered in ash. It looks as if it has gone out, but with just a gentle breeze, the fire rises again." That person was not the fire. They were just the breeze. You were, and still are, the flame. And now, you can breathe a new breeze into your own heart, by your own hand. No past needed, no memory required, just your honesty, your courage to come alive again. Some goodbyes come without arguments, without closure, without a clear end. Sometimes, a person drifts away. The calls become fewer. The eyes stop meeting. The silence stretches and becomes part of your life. And you realize that relationship did not break. It dissolved into silence. And because there was no clear ending, your heart does not know where to place it. There was no farewell, no goodbye, no closing line, so it lingers, like a letter never sent, like a sentence cut short, like a hand once held, then quietly released without a word. They are gone. Life has changed. You have moved forward, but your heart still holds a gap, a door that was never fully closed. In Buddhism, this is called unfulfilled cetasika, a mental formation that rises but never reaches completion. It loops back again and again, in different forms, until it is resolved. You may no longer cry. You may not wish for them to return, but your heart still trembles at the sound of their name. When an old song plays, or when you walk through golden light that looks like the afternoon you once shared together. And you ask yourself, why do I still remember? The answer may be simple. Because you never truly said goodbye, with your whole heart. A real goodbye is not turning off your phone, deleting messages, or blocking someone online. A true farewell is when you sit with yourself. Look deeply at what once was. Take a deep breath, and say aloud the things you swallowed. Maybe you once wanted to say, "I'm sad, I'm disappointed, I once hoped," but you said nothing. You tucked it away, put it in a corner, and tried to move on like someone strong. And that is why your heart still feels unfinished. You do not need to tell them. You do not need them to hear, or understand, or respond. You only need to speak to yourself, as a witness to this ending. Try writing a letter you will never send. Sit down, and say to yourself, "I allow myself to grieve one last time. I allow myself to love one last time. And from this moment, I choose to close this chapter. Not because there is nothing left to say, but because I have said enough to walk forward." Saying goodbye is not the end of love. It is the end of attachment. Goodbye is not because you hate them. Goodbye is because you love yourself enough not to stay in a story that no longer continues. There is a beautiful image in Zen. Bow to the door that has closed, as an act of gratitude, then turn and walk away. No rush, no regret, no need to forget. Just, it is time. And each new step will feel lighter. Not because the memories disappear, but because your heart has finally whispered a true farewell. Some pain does not come from what happened. It comes from something subtler, more persistent, the refusal to accept that it really happened. When someone leaves, when love ends, when a relationship breaks, you think you understand. You say, "Yes, I know, it's over." But deep within, there is still a part of you that will not accept it. A quiet hope lingers. What if? What if one day they come back? What if this is just a test? What if everything could be fixed? If I change enough, try hard enough, stay patient long enough, you may appear okay on the outside. But inside, your heart is still resisting reality. Not with tears, but with a quiet, unnamed hope. In Buddhist teachings, this is a form of suffering, dukkha khandha, born from the clash between what is and what we wish it to be. The pain isn't caused by their leaving. It comes from our refusal to accept that they truly are gone. So your mind keeps replaying the story. Not to live the past again, but to fight the present. And you know what? Nothing is more exhausting than living in a constant rebellion against what is. Acceptance is not agreement. It's not saying, "Yes, this was right." Acceptance means stopping the war with what you cannot change. You might not like what happened. You might wish it were different. But in the end, you cannot change the past. You can only look at it without resistance. It happened. It wasn't how I wanted it. And I will no longer waste energy resisting what's already done. Acceptance doesn't weaken you. Acceptance brings you back to yourself, in this moment, where the only change that matters can begin. When you accept, you stop rehearsing the story in your mind. You stop planning, what if? You stop dwelling on, should have. You're left with one thing: truth. And truth, even painful, is the only soil where healing can take root. Ask yourself, what am I still refusing to accept? What part of me still believes it's not over? How much energy do I spend every day pretending I'm fine, while deep inside, I'm silently rejecting reality? Only when you look clearly will you stop fighting life, and begin to actually live again. There's a deep Zen teaching. The present is the only place that never betrays you. They may have betrayed you. Feelings may have changed. Memories may deceive you. But this moment, with your breath, is real. And if you return to it, if you accept that you are exactly here, right now, with nothing to fight and nothing to hold on to, then in that moment, that person will leave, not your life, but your mind, not because you forgot, but because you finally stopped denying the truth. Sometimes, you don't remember someone because love remains. You hold on because attachment remains. Love can fade, but attachment, to a habit, a feeling, can persist endlessly. A part of your mind became used to having them in your life. Used to thinking of them, worrying for them, remembering them. You created a place for them, a familiar anchor within. And now that they're gone, your mind feels unmoored, as if a structural beam has been removed from a room you once knew well. So what you're missing isn't necessarily them. You're missing the familiar structure your mind built around them. In Buddhist teaching, this is called upadana, clinging. You hold on to something that no longer exists simply because you fear losing the comfort of what used to be. Attachment does not need a reason. It doesn't come from their value. It comes from the repetition of emotion. You thought of them too long, too often. You included them in dreams, future plans, inner dialogues. Now your mind has a map of feelings, whose name is theirs. When that person left, you didn't just lose a person. You lost an entire internal framework you used to understand yourself, to illuminate your being, to love, or even to hurt. In Buddhist teachings, the heart is not yet ready to let go because you may be confusing attachment with love. Love is wishing for their happiness, even if they are not with you. Attachment is fearing they will change, that they will forget you, that somehow you will be left behind. Love flows freely. Attachment is an invisible bond that tightens around both hearts. If you don't distinguish between them, you might say, "I loved them too much." But the truth might be, "I just got so used to having them. I no longer know who I am without them." You don't need to force yourself to forget them. You need to rebuild yourself as a whole being, no longer defined by someone else's presence. Try this experiment. Spend 1 week without thinking of them. Do things once shared with them, but do them alone. Fully. Feel the emptiness instead of dodging it. Because only when you walk through that gap will you reach your true self, untangled and free. In Zen, there's a beautiful concept called vimutti sata, a mind that is free and independent, no longer bound to any image or concept. It's not about being empty. It's about being vast enough that you don't need to lean on anyone to feel whole. And that is your aim. Not to forget them, but to disentangle yourself from the habit of equating your worth with someone else. You once loved, and that was beautiful. Now, perhaps you need to learn how to release the attachment, so that love can return in its true form, freedom. Sometimes, what holds you back from letting go isn't them. It isn't the memories. It isn't even the emotions. It's someone else, you. You cannot let go because you are still blaming yourself. Blaming the part of you that loved too much, that trusted too easily, that wasn't alert enough, that failed to preserve the relationship, that said the wrong words, took the wrong actions, or stayed silent when you should have spoken. And then, they left. The story ended. But you remained, not because of them, but because you couldn't forgive yourself. In Buddhist teaching, this is a subtle form of internal resentment, not raging outward, but cutting inward, quietly bleeding under the skin. You can't release the memories because every time they resurface, you condemn yourself again, and each act of self-judgment reopens the wound. You replay scenarios in your mind, hoping you could rewrite the ending. But you cannot. And so you're trapped in a loop of self-reproach and regret. Your heart isn't holding onto them. It's holding onto a flawed version of yourself, and refusing to let it go. But listen, no one goes through life without being wrong. No one loves deeply without making mistakes, weakening, or losing clear sight. Mistakes don't make you unworthy. They make you human. You cannot change the past. But you can return, and embrace that younger version of yourself. They may be gone, but you are still here, and you deserve forgiveness, healing, and a new beginning. Try this practice. Sit quietly. No judgment. Close your eyes. Imagine facing your past self, the one who loved imperfectly, who lost their way. Then gently say, "I understand. I did the best I could with what I had then. And now, I don't want to keep hurting myself. I forgive myself." In Zen, forgiveness isn't erasure. It's stopping the judgment, the accusation, the replay of pain. Only by forgiving yourself can you truly release them. Because that person has long ceased to be a presence. They became a mirror of your own self-critic. So when you heal within, Their shadow dissolves like morning mist. No need to force it. No need to forget. There is simply nothing left to hold. In the Buddha's teachings, there is a peaceful image. A flower cannot bloom unless the earth has softened. Likewise, the heart cannot release unless it has forgiven itself. You do not need to be perfect to deserve love. You only need to know that you can begin again, even from your past mistakes. Ask yourself, are you truly remembering a real person? Or are you remembering an image you created? Something very common happens after a breakup. Your mind begins to idealize who's gone. In some ways, memories become more radiant than reality. Their flaws fade. The hurts they caused become wrapped in empathy. And before long, the person in your mind becomes a better version, better than who they were in real life. You think you miss them, but really you miss someone who does not exist. A version who was kinder, who understood you more, who loved you deeper. Someone you believe, if given another chance, could have been different. Your heart cannot let go, not because they were that special, but because you projected all your hopes onto them, your ideal love. In Buddhism, this is a powerful working of sanya, the layer of perception and imagination within the mind. Sanya can make you believe something that never truly happened. And if you don't see this clearly, you'll keep longing for someone you created in your mind, not the person who was actually with you. When they were present, you knew the truth. You felt the pain. The loneliness existed even together. You sensed growing distance. They didn't fully know you. But once they were gone, your mind, out of sorrow, began turning them into someone more beautiful than reality. This is the mind's way of comforting itself. But it's also what traps you. You can't let go, because letting go of that idealized image feels like letting go of hope, of a dream, of a life that should have been beautiful. But here's what you must know. Think clearly. Is anyone truly worth holding onto that much pain, if you are seeing them as they really were? Letting go doesn't mean denying the good. Letting go means restoring them to their true form, no embellishment, no idealization, no unspoken expectations. Try this. Write 2 lists. One side, the things you genuinely appreciated about them. The other side, what hurt you, disappointed you, where they fell short. Look at both sides and ask, who am I remembering? The real person? Or the one my wounded heart imagined? Only when you distinguish between the two can you reclaim your energy. You don't need to chase that image with your old partner. What you appreciated, the love, understanding, connection, can be found within yourself, or in healthier relationships. In Zen, there's a gentle yet powerful teaching. When you put expectations on someone, you no longer see them. You only see your own desire. You can love someone deeply, but love them as they are, not as you wish them to be. And if they're no longer here, let your image of them dissolve into truth. Don't hold it. Don't embellish it. Release it quietly, like a cloud drifting across a mountain. Now that you have explored each layer and piece of your inner journey, you may see the deeper truth. The real obstacle isn't them. It's your reaction to their presence in your mind. To begin healing, you don't need to change anyone else. You only need to learn to gently observe yourself, with mindful awareness. That first step, and the foundation, is mindful observation. Mindfulness isn't about forcing concentration, or achieving thoughtlessness. It's simply being aware of what's present without judgment, without pushing it away, without holding on. When their image appears in your mind, what do you usually do? Do you try to forget? Do you force it away? Do you punish yourself for not having let go already? All of those responses, even if well-intended, are forms of resistance. And the stronger the resistance, the deeper the suffering. Instead, try this. Pause. Notice what's arising. Gently say to yourself, this is a thought. This is a memory. Observe, weaken the charge you give it. When you stop fighting the feeling of their presence, the mind begins to settle. You may still remember, but you're no longer held captive. Remember, mindfulness is not emptying your mind. It's befriending it, with openness and care. Zen teaches us a different approach. Do nothing. Just notice. When the image of that person appears, you simply whisper to yourself, oh, a thought about them just showed up. Oh, here comes a feeling, sadness, longing, anger. You do not have to replay the story. You do not need to analyze what is right or wrong. You do not need to decide what to do. Just breathe and observe. It is like sitting by the river, watching leaves float past. You do not need to pick them up. You do not need to stop the flow. You just acknowledge that the river is flowing, and you are witnessing it. Mindfulness holds incredible power, not because it eliminates emotion, but because it softens it through presence. At first, you may find it difficult, because your mind is used to reacting, used to chasing, analyzing, retelling, drawing conclusions. But if you are patient, one moment at a time, you will discover something amazing. Every thought, every emotion, no matter how strong, can be seen, and then it will pass. There is a beautiful Zen image. The mind is the sky. Thoughts are the clouds. There are white clouds, and there are dark ones. But the sky is never polluted by the clouds. And when you remember that you are the sky, you no longer fear the clouds. So when that person appears in your mind, you do not need to push them away. Just look at them like a passing cloud, knowing they will move on. Sit down, breathe slowly, and whisper to yourself, I do not need to do anything. I just need to be present. I do not need to forget. I just need to observe without judgment. And right in that moment of observing, your heart will begin to feel lighter. Once you have learned how to sit with emotion, without judging it, without pushing it away, the next step is to listen to what lies underneath the thought. Not to analyze or dissect, but to understand yourself with gentleness and compassion. This is when you begin a very important practice, asking yourself questions with kindness. Not the kind of questions like, why am I so weak? Why can I not let them go? Those kinds of questions carry blame, and they only close your heart even more. Instead, ask soft questions, as if you were sitting across from a child who is crying inside your own heart. You do not need to fix them. You just need to ask gently, what inside of me needs to be heard? What feeling am I avoiding? What lesson is this person trying to awaken in me? When you ask this way, with love and no pressure, your mind will begin to open. Not all at once, but little by little, fragments of memory, forgotten feelings, will start to speak. You might discover, what hurts is not just this person, but the old wound of being left behind when you were young. You might realize, you do not need them to come back, you just need someone to say you are worthy. And maybe, you will see, what you cannot let go of is not them, but a part of yourself you have never accepted. To ask with compassion is to bring light into the places where darkness has stayed too long. In Buddhism, people do not find answers by fighting. They find them through mindfulness and compassion. Mindfulness helps you see clearly. Compassion helps you stop blaming yourself when you see what is there. So when you look back at your past, and a part of you starts to cry, do not ask, "Why am I still hurting?" Instead, say, "Ah, pain is here, and I am not going to turn away from it anymore." That is how healing begins, not through knowledge, but through permission, not with reasons, but with gentle acceptance. There is a teaching in the Anguttara Nikaya. Just as the earth does not reject what is impure, a kind heart does not reject itself when it is still in pain. Your heart, like the earth, can hold everything. And right there, from that place, wisdom begins to grow. We often think that letting go is an action, like something we have to do to forget, to stop, to erase. But the truth is, according to the Buddha, letting go is not something you do. It is something that naturally happens when you stop clinging. And what opens the door to letting go is acceptance. Acceptance is not saying the pain is okay. It is not about enduring your fate. Acceptance is when you stop fighting reality. It is when you quietly say in your heart, "This happened, and I will no longer pretend it did not." Letting go does not come when you try to forget someone. Letting go comes when you stop telling yourself that you must be someone different to feel peace. Many people misunderstand letting go. They think it means giving up on that person, giving up on love, giving up on all the beautiful memories. But in truth, when you can hold everything in your heart, without trying to change it, that is when you are truly letting go. No resisting, no clinging, just allowing things to be exactly as they are. A Zen master once said, "With a clenched hand, you cannot receive, but when the hand opens, everything will either come or go on its own." Letting go is simply opening your hand. It means loosening the meaning you once gave to someone. Maybe you used to believe they were your destiny, your other half, the one source of happiness. But now, perhaps you can just breathe and say, "They were once an important part of me, but now, I allow them to be part of my past." You do not need to erase them. You do not need to hate them. You only need to stop fighting what already happened. Acceptance means letting life continue, even when the past is still there. It means moving forward, even if the memories have not faded. It means allowing sadness to exist, without having to conquer it. There is a beautiful Zen metaphor. You are holding a cup of hot tea. Your hand burns, but you keep holding it, afraid that if you let go, you will lose it forever. Only when you open your hand, you see, there is another pot of tea waiting for you. Warmer, fresher, from deep within yourself. Acceptance is not the end. It is the beginning of no longer resisting. And within that space, you will feel something you may have forgotten: freedom. Freedom does not come from erasing someone from your mind. Freedom comes when you are no longer afraid of their presence. You can think of them and still feel calm. You can remember and not fall apart. You can look back and smile. "I have made it through." That is letting go. Not loud, not dramatic. Just one breath, deep and light. Once you have learned to observe your thoughts, to ask yourself kind questions, and slowly soften your resistance through acceptance, then comes the next important step: redirecting your attention, but mindfully. Not to avoid, not to distract yourself in a rush to forget, but to gently bring your awareness back to the present moment, with intention and clarity. Because as you have seen, that person is not truly in front of you anymore. They are in your mind, like an echo, a vision, a string of emotions, and every time they appear, you have a choice: drift along with your thoughts, or return to the here and now. Not by forcing yourself to say, "I must not think about them," but with a soft, honest question: what is truly here right now? Maybe it is your breath. Maybe it is the sound outside the window. Maybe it is the feeling of your feet pressing into the ground. All of these are doors back to the present. Each time they show up in your mind, instead of blaming yourself for not forgetting, you can treat it as a mindfulness bell. A gentle reminder. It is time to come home. Come home to what? To your body. To the room you are in. To the flow of life that you had left behind while chasing what was. Here is a simple Zen practice you can try. Each time a thought about them arises, take a deep breath. Whisper to yourself, "I see this thought is here." Then exhale, and bring your attention to the feeling of your feet touching the ground. That is all. Nothing more. At first, you will forget. Your mind will wander again. But that is okay. The essence of meditation is to return, again and again, without judgment. Each return strengthens your presence. And with each return, that person, no matter how often they appear, will hold less and less power over you. A Zen teacher once said, "The one who trains the mind is not someone who never thinks. It is someone who knows when they are thinking, and knows how to come back. Not someone who never gets lost, but someone who always knows how to return." That is real freedom. Redirecting with awareness means giving the power back to yourself. Not letting someone else, or a memory, or the past dictate the path of your heart. But gently, each time you drift, coming back again. No forcing, no tension. Just this simple truth: I choose to return to now. And strangely, the more you return, the clearer it becomes. That person is no longer at the center of your world. You are the one who is alive. You are the center now. And the present moment is the only place where you truly exist. After all the observing, listening, gently releasing, and returning, there is one final practice, simple yet magical, that can fully transform the invisible bond between you and that person. That practice is loving kindness meditation, known as metta bhavana in the early Buddhist tradition. Loving kindness meditation is the art of offering goodwill to yourself and others, without words, without meaning, without conditions. It only requires a gentle heart to say, "I wish you peace, and I also wish peace for myself." When that person still appears in your awareness, you may still feel some resentment. You may still carry regret. You may still feel unrest in your heart. But instead of letting those feelings control you, you can choose to offer them a new energy. Not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to live unburdened. The practice of loving kindness meditation is very simple, but its healing power is immense. You may begin by sitting quietly, closing your eyes, and placing a hand on your chest. Breathe in slowly, breathe out gently, and silently repeat phrases like a cool breeze. For yourself, may I be peaceful, may I be healed, may I be free from resentment, attachment, and suffering. Once you feel your heart soften a bit, bring your attention to that person. You do not need to picture them clearly. Just call them to mind, like a vague silhouette, Then silently repeat, "For them, may you be peaceful. May you be free from suffering, confusion, and unease. May you live with a heart that is open and as light as drifting clouds." At first, it may feel difficult, you may even resist internally, but do not push yourself. Just the intention to send loving kindness is enough for that energy to begin moving. Because, as many meditation masters say, when you send love to another person, you are the first one to be healed. They do not have to hear your silent blessing. You only need to hear it, and feel your heart grow lighter. Bit by bit, let them become like a raindrop that landed on the surface of your mind lake. Do not cling, do not push away. Simply smile and softly say, "Thank you for coming into my life. And now, I wish you to go in peace." They may remain in your memory, but no longer as a wound. They become a musical note in the vibrant song of your life. And that song is still playing, with you as the musician, guided by a heart that is now more gentle and open than ever before. When people talk about letting go, many think they must forget. Forget what happened. Forget the person who mattered. Forget painful memories. But the truth is, forgetting is not healing. You can force yourself to erase the memory. Avoid reminders. Do everything possible to not think about it. But the harder you try to forget, the more your mind tightens its grip. Because you are resisting the memory, instead of transforming it. Forgetting is a form of denial. Gratitude is a form of acceptance. In Buddhist teaching, the deepest transformation does not come from eliminating emotion. It comes from looking at what happened with a different mind. Instead of asking, "How do I forget?" try asking, "What have I learned from this experience?" That person may be gone. That relationship may have ended without closure. But you are still here. Still breathing. Still learning how to love yourself again. Still walking each new day with strength. That alone is a miracle. So try this. Sit down and write a letter of gratitude, not to send. Just to read to yourself. Thank you for the moments that were real. Thank you for giving me the chance to love, even if only for a season. Thank you for helping me feel that I could be moved, that I could soften, that I could forgive. Thank you for the pain. You taught me how to grow. And thank you for walking away so that I could learn to stand on my own. Remember, you do not need to forget. You only need to transform the memory into a part of you, without letting it hurt you anymore. When you feel grateful for what has passed, you are no longer afraid of its return. You no longer avoid it. You no longer secretly blame anyone. And, like magic, pain, when embraced with gratitude, dissolves on its own. Like morning mist under sunlight. There is a gentle yet profound image in Zen. A falling leaf is not the end, but a thank you from the tree to the passing season. You are the same. You can say thank you. No one needs to hear it. What matters is that your heart truly speaks it. And from there, you walk forward, not because you forgot, but because you have transformed. After all that has happened, the hurt, the regrets, the struggles, and the letting go, perhaps the most important question is not what or whom you have moved on from, but this: have you returned to yourself? Because sometimes, loss does not take someone else out of your life. It takes you away from yourself. You used to be someone lighthearted, free-spirited, able to laugh when happy and cry when hurt. You used to love life, to dream, to believe in beauty. But after enough pain, you began to shrink back. You began to question your own emotions. Afraid of being let down. Afraid of being hurt again. You became cautious. You no longer dared to dream too far. You guarded your heart. You said, "I am fine." But in truth, you were just standing outside the door of your own soul. True healing is not about stopping your thoughts of someone. It is about slowly walking through the walls you have built around yourself, so you can return to the purest version of who you are. The version of you that knows how to love without clinging, knows how to trust without blindness, knows how to live truthfully while keeping a soft heart. You can start with small things. A morning walk without your phone. A slow cup of tea, just to feel the warmth spreading through your chest. A journal entry where you write down your feelings, unedited, unhidden. An evening where you place your hand on your heart and ask, "Did I live honestly with myself today?" In Zen Buddhism, there is a famous question. What is your true face before your parents were born? Meaning, who are you? Truly, before the world shaped you. Before you became someone to someone else? The answer is not in the mind. It is in every moment you live honestly. Each time you take a deep breath without chasing your thoughts. Each second you come back to your body. Your breath. Your heart. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to be like you used to be. You only need to return to yourself as you are right now. And from that place, you begin again. No one else can do that for you. No new relationship can fill that space. Only you, sitting down, staying, listening, and holding yourself close. One day, you will realize you do not need someone to love you enough to feel worthy. Because you have always been enough once you truly come home to yourself. There is something that often happens after heartbreak. You keep living, but you stop living openly. You get through the pain, but carry a thick shell. You get used to being okay, but it is a careful, guarded, and distant kind of okay. You tell yourself, "I am not hurt anymore." But in truth, you have built a safe zone and stayed in it ever since. You no longer want to love. No longer truly hope for anything new. No longer let your heart be moved when someone gets close. And you think, "This is good. I am protecting myself." But you know what? Sometimes the wound no longer bleeds, but it still blocks the path to your heart. And you begin to live like an island. Healing does not stop at getting over someone. True healing only happens when you open back up to life, as if reborn. You do not need to love again right away. You do not need to seek a new relationship. You only need to begin with one simple thing. Believe that this world still holds so many beautiful things. Try beginning again, not as who you used to be, but as someone new. Someone with a heart that has been broken but has learned how to be gentle with itself. Walk a new path. Speak a truth you have never dared to say. Reconnect with a small joy, like tending to a plant, writing a few lines of your feelings, or listening to an old song. You do not need anyone to complete you. You are not empty. You are simply waiting to live fully, in a world no longer clouded by the shadows of the past. There is a beautiful image in Zen about rebirth. A lotus rises from the mud, not to escape it, but to prove that even in the darkest place, light can be born. You are that lotus. You have fallen. You have lost. But now, you can choose to rise, not because someone lifts you up, but because you choose to step into the light. To open your heart does not mean you believe everything will be easy. It means you choose to live truthfully, even knowing that pain might return, yet still choosing to live fully. Because if you shut your heart, you do not avoid sadness. You only trade it for numbness. And you deserve more than that. You deserve a life lived with your whole heart, unhidden, unafraid, unfrozen. There is a paradox many people experience after a breakup. When the pain softens, when the heart begins to calm, when that first tiny joy knocks at the door, they cannot bring themselves to welcome happiness. Not because they do not want to, but because they feel undeserving. You once loved deeply. You were once deeply hurt. You once thought, if I had been different, maybe it would not have ended. And ever since they left, unconsciously, you have punished yourself by denying the good things. You smile, then quickly hide it. You are cared for, but push it away. You feel your heart flutter again, but pull it back, afraid it will happen all over again. Your mind has decided, I made mistakes, I hurt someone, I was not enough, so maybe I should not be happy so soon. Maybe I should endure a little longer. And just like that, you survive, but do not truly live. But you know what? Love does not come to prove you are fully healed. Joy does not come to test whether you have learned your lesson. The beautiful things in life sometimes arrive gently, like sunlight through a window. And all you need is one thing: to allow yourself to receive it. You do not need to be perfect to be loved. You do not need to forget the past to smile again. You do not need to prove anything to anyone, except yourself. That you are brave enough to step out of the pain, and that you deserve to be part of the beauty. Happiness is not a reward. Happiness is your right to live fully, as a human being who has been through enough loss to know how to cherish peace. There is a gentle image in Zen. When the rain passes, the earth does not ask for permission to dry. It simply breathes and welcomes the sun. You are the same. You do not need pain's permission to be happy. You only need to decide, I am ready. Ready to smile again. Ready to open your heart. Ready to step into a new day, without dragging along the remnants of what has passed. And if one day, your heart stirs again for something, do not doubt, do not run, do not ask the past for permission. Just tell yourself, I no longer live in anyone's shadow. From now on, I am the one who lights up my life. After all the inner steps, listening, forgiving, letting go, healing, opening up, there will come a time when you must do something simple yet most important. Begin to act for yourself. Not to act in order to forget. Not to prove to anyone that you have moved on. Not to fill the emptiness. But to act like someone who has learned to love themselves, and wants to live a life worthy of that love. We have spent so much time loving others, caring about their feelings, understanding them, accepting them, forgiving them. It is time to love yourself with the same devotion. If there is something you have postponed, begin now. If there is a place you have always wanted to go, take the first step. If there is a part of you that has been forgotten, go back and take care of it. Do not wait for permission to live this life. You do not need to wait. Because you are the only one who has been here, from beginning to end. The action does not need to be grand. It can be a healthy habit you stick to every morning. A small decision to protect your values. A choice to say no to what no longer serves you. A step towards something that makes you feel truly alive. In Zen, action does not mean doing a lot. It means doing with mindfulness. Doing with presence. A small act, done with a calm heart, is already a profound healing. You may have once lost your way. given up parts of yourself to keep someone, or paused your journey because the pain was too much. But today, you are different. Not because you are stronger, but because you understand yourself better. And when you understand yourself, you will know what to do. No rush, no noise, no chasing, just steady steps toward the light. You do not need to be perfect to belong in this life. You just need to be honest with yourself and stay true to what brings you peace. Write down one thing you will do, just for you, and commit to it as a sacred ritual of starting again. Not because someone is watching, not because someone is waiting, but because you are ready to stop abandoning yourself. There is an old Zen metaphor that still speaks to the heart. Our mind is like a river, and that person was like a stone dropped into its flow. When the stone hits the water, it creates ripples, waves spread, the surface is disturbed. Sometimes the current becomes chaotic. Leaves drift apart, the stillness is shattered, and we, the ones sitting by the bank, can only watch the rippling water. As our thoughts stir with 1,000 emotions, that person was once a glance, a hug, a word. One day, they entered our life, like that stone, without asking, without warning, and since then, the river of our mind has never been the same. But Zen does not ask us to pull the stone out or force the water to still. It simply teaches, let the river flow. Because, if the river keeps flowing, without effort, one of two things will happen. The stone will quietly sink to the bottom, becoming part of the riverbed, no longer disturbing the surface. Or, with time and current, it will be carried away to wherever it needs to go. But what matters most is not the stone. It is the flow. Likewise, you do not need to forget that person. You do not need to erase them from your mind. You just need to let your inner river keep flowing. Inhale, exhale. The morning passes. The sun rises, then sets. You are still living, still moving forward, still breathing, still yourself, day by day, moment by moment. And then, one afternoon, you suddenly realize that person no longer stirs your heart like before. Not because they have disappeared, but because you have stopped standing at the place where they fell. The river is still flowing. Maybe they have become a part of you, but not the center. They are a stone that once made waves and now rests quietly in memory. You do not hate. You do not need to love like you used to. You simply feel grateful. Grateful that they came. Grateful that they helped you look deeply into yourself. And grateful that you were brave enough to let your river keep flowing. There is a beautiful saying in Zen. The mind is like water. The more you let go, the clearer it becomes. Memories are like stones. The tighter you hold, the deeper they sink. You do not need to be perfect to be at peace. You just need to stop holding on so tightly. And when you sit down, in the quiet of the night, you may finally hear the gentle sound of water flowing through your heart. No longer rushing, no longer chaotic, just peace. And so, after all the reasons, the layers of emotions, the tides of consciousness, and the unfinished chords of human connection, you have walked with me through a long journey. Not to rip someone out of your mind in haste, but to understand that person is no longer a chain, but a doorway into awakening. You have looked, not with ordinary eyes, but with the light of mindfulness. You have asked, not to judge, but to understand. You have sat with the longing, the pain, the unnamed emotions, and you have dared to stay with yourself. If they still return from time to time, in a breeze, a piece of music, a familiar place, you will not be afraid anymore. Because now, you know, I can see them, and still be at peace. I can remember, and not fall. I can go on living, even if the ending was not perfect. They may have left your life, but their presence, even if once turbulent, has become part of your spiritual river. And you, the one who stayed, who breathed with the truth, who sat in stillness without losing yourself, you are the witness of this quiet transformation. Tonight, if you are hearing these words before sleep, I hope you will not try to force your mind to be still. Just breathe, gently, and whisper to yourself, everything is enough now. I need nothing more to be at peace. Your heart does not need fixing. It only needs to be held with tenderness. And if these words, somehow, have touched you, softened your soul even a little, then I invite you to stay. This journey is long. There are still many doors waiting to be opened, with meditation, with understanding, with compassion. Subscribe to this channel, and let us continue this path together. A path with no rush, no pressure. Only quiet moments, gentle raindrops, and the breath that leads us home to ourselves. Thank you for walking with me this far. May you have a peaceful night. May your heart remain wide open. And may the river within you always find its way to the light.